Hey man, just wanted to see what you think about this sort of layout. So we have a camera selector, and then whenever you select the camera, you have all these settings. I think most of these are closed by default. And you can choose to select depth of field object. And of course you have your different constraints. You can add in the different constraints. It's recommended to have them exactly in this order: the floor, follow path, and then track to at the end. And then you can do some stuff that I'm going to show off here. So if I Shift A, add in a curve, I'm going to add in a circle. Then I'll just scale that up. And then I can select this path, and now I can adjust the scale. And it's not just scaling it the easy way, it's managing to scale the object and then applying the transforms, which unfortunately requires the add-on to select the object, because bpy.ops.object is kind of tricky to work with. The other thing we can do is I can lock the scale, so it's good for circles. It's also recommended to Alt-G on the camera, so it manages to stick to the curve. And then you can adjust where the object is, where the camera is on the curve. And then you can adjust the curve scale. You can also adjust the floor here. And I'm going to track to our Suzanne head. And then I can adjust how far up the camera is from the floor. Which I could even move this up, and then you would end up with this interesting follow path type thing. And if I scale it, it's also going to scale up like that, so that might not be so good in certain situations. And it kind of works. So I'm just going to set all these scale back to 1. I'll just have an edit mode and scale them all there. I'll set the absolute there. And then for fun, I can type in #frame divided by 4. And then I'm going to set the render frames to 400, because that seems to work with. And then Shift Spacebar, and it will rotate around. I'm going to go into camera view. I'll zoom in here. Set the camera to something like 80, 24. Zoom that out to around 50. And we can adjust the curve scale, which is not exactly the desired result there, but scale Z0, Alt-G. I'm going to apply the scale. There. It's interesting, I didn't expect it to keep those values. That's the depth of field. So you can choose to enable and disable it even if the depth of field is collapsed. Something like that. And then with our constraints here, I'm going to focus in on the floor. You can choose to mute them. You can also select the camera. So if I go over here again, you can see that I'm muting it. You can also move it up and down the stack, and then you can remove it. I'm going to add it again. It's going to add to the bottom, which isn't what we want, so I'm just going to move it up. And let's hear, this is supposed to be Suzanne. Or, yeah. Which actually I can add in another object. I'll just add in a plane. I'll scale that up. And I'm going to set that to the floor. I'm going to make sure that the floor isn't visible. Secure. What else do we have? You could tell the camera to rotate to follow the path. You can even set the radius if you want the scale to affect it. And you can even set this to kind of an absolute start and end point. This is good for the Jaws effect, which I'll demonstrate right now. I'm going to add in a curve, Bezier, and then I'm just going to right click, set the handles to automatic. I'm just going to move that on the X real quick. I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to set this to active real quick. GX, and there we go. And I'm going to rotate this by about 90. Now we're going to, well, I don't have to select the camera because everything is pretty cool about that. And then we'll select our curve. So you have a start and you have an end point. Or you can leave it like that, and I probably want to remove the driver. Which I'm not really sure. Delete driver. Okay. So as you can see, if you don't have the limit constraint, then you can just expand into the distance. Go on to camera view. And another thing I can do is I can just Shift D, duplicate that. I'm going to Alt G to make sure that that's always set that way. And then I'll move that there. There you go. And then the hashtag frame divided by 4. So that's always going to be rotating. And then this camera has the option to just zoom in. Unfortunately, the way Blender works, which is super dumb, you cannot animate the pointer object. You cannot animate the scene camera. But what you can do is open up the timeline, and then there's like a Shift B or some sort of way you can paste in the object. Shift B, Control B, Control B. Yeah, you can use Control B and it will set the camera. Which is so weird. But as you can see, the camera just switched over to our spinning round. And then it changes over to our zoom in camera. Oh, they're markers. That's interesting. Okay. Learn as we go. So yeah, just kind of wondering what you think about having nested kind of settings like that. I know it can be a little weird. I was thinking almost about doing that for the render as well. Or at least like the render settings. We'll see. We'll see what I end up with eventually. Alright. Thank you for watching.